Just want to begin just with a little bit of gratitude, or I guess a lot of gratitude for IJS and for all of us who are present today. Today, our sit is going to be devoted to sitting with paradox and sitting in paradox. But before we enter that space, I wanted to bring us into this moment with these words of comfort, nachamu, us being in these 7 weeks of consolation. And so you can just take this time to set up your space, prepare yourself in any way that you need to as we begin this short journey together. Nachamu, nachamu, ani yomar Elohechem. 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 Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle to care for one another. Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle with our word. Nachamu, nachamu, ani yomar Elohechem. Nachamu, nachamu, ani yomar Elohechem. So hopefully that's given you enough time to kind of just enter this space and find your seat. If you haven't done so already, I'm going to invite you just to take a few deep and cleansing breaths, allowing whatever has happened prior to this moment to just melt away from the experience so you can be present with what is just now. So I wanted to invite us into this world of sitting with paradox. And I'll share with you that the reason it's on my mind is that I just left a retreat and learning session at Upaya, which is a Zen meditation, a Zen monastery in New Mexico, where we were studying paradox in Zen tradition. And there were so many overlaps with our Jewish world that it was kind of perfect coming back and being on the docket to be with you all. So sitting with paradox is really powerful for where we are in this moment in time, in the world that we live in. On the one hand, I know when asking people, how are you doing? People have a hard time even answering that question, because many of us on the surface, like our lives are just fine, yet we feel a great inner turmoil when we think about the larger world around us. Or it could be the other way around. We're dealing with great struggle on the surface, and yet we know deep in our hearts, in this moment, everything's okay. So we're constantly dealing with that paradox in our own lives as we move through the world. And as Ilana Arian says in Nachamu, as we struggle with this world. And also, we just came out of Tisha B'Av, and as we were going through that moment, I was thinking about these two different cantillation systems. So there's a cantillation system for the Book of Lamentations that is chanted on Tisha B'Av, which is this day of sorrow and deep pain in our Jewish calendar. And if you have the ear and you're knowledgeable, when you listen to the chanting that happens on Tisha B'Av, you hear the same melodies, not exactly the same, but they're in there, the melodies that we chant for the scroll of Esther on Purim. Paradox, right there, holding those two things, knowing that pain exists within joy, and joy exists within pain. It's even carried in our melodies. And we know this also deeply for ourselves because we also carry mixed emotions into so many parts of our lives. So today, I'm just going to invite us to be with both, Share a couple of texts and then we'll sit. The first one comes to us from Likutei Moharan, and this is from Nachman of Bratslav. And if you're following along in the text that was provided for you in the chat, I'm just going to read the very end, but I gave you the longer text to go back to for later if you'd like. So Nachman of Bratslav is talking here about the creation of the world, God creating the world. And this last paragraph, he writes, the empty void, talking about the void that the Holy One of Blessing created, was necessary for creation, since without it, there would be no space for the world. Yet this concept of retraction to form the empty void is impossible to comprehend in our time. Only at the end of days will it be possible to comprehend it, since it entails a paradox of two opposites, presence and absence. So for Nachman, even the very, very first act, the act of creation, involves this paradox. And I think it also speaks very deeply to our sitting practice, that paradox of being both present and inviting this sense of evenness, sense of letting go into our sitting. And then I also wanted to share with you a little bit from Dogen, who is the person who's responsible for bringing Buddhism from China to Japan and for the Soto Zen tradition. So this is a translation by Yasadu Joshu Roshi. You should stop chasing understanding through juggling words. Allow the external seeking of your mind to collapse upon itself and light up your own nature. Doing this, the body-mind will drop through itself spontaneously, revealing your original nature. If you wish to be realized in suchness, immediately practice suchness. Easy to say, more difficult to do. But today, the suchness, the being that I'm going to invite us into is knowing that we're, most of us, because we're humans and we're alive, feeling all the different feelings, different emotions that we're feeling as we sit with the breath, allowing it to be the wave that we just float on top of, to drop in to the emotive state, to truly just touch on what is there. We don't have to name it. We don't have to fix it. We can just be with it, even if it's this and that at the same time. So I'll invite you now, as you found your seat, you can either allow your eyes to come to a gentle focus, a foot or two in front of you, or to close if that's your preference, whatever's more comfortable for you. Take a few cleansing breaths. And now just allow the breath to breathe the body. You don't have to be in control of it. It's there for you to lean into, to relax into. And as you do so, just taking a moment to see how it is that the emotions are expressing themselves through the somatic state of your body. You don't need to name it. You don't need to fix it. Just be with whatever you find there. And we'll sit for just a few minutes, allowing ourselves, even if we notice paradox in our emotive state, to just be. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami Yoma Elohechem. Thank you for your presence. I'm going to turn it back to Frikins now. Thank you.
Kerith, thank you. I don't want to juggle words in thanking you for your teaching. That was really beautiful. We continue our practice now with the recitation of Kaddish for all of those among us who may be in mourning. We invite you to put in the chat anyone that you are remembering, a prayer for them. And then I invite us all to unmute so that we can recite together and to rise and embody our spirit to recite Kaddish together.
Buchdahl Tadash Meraba Yama Diva Rote Yamlik Malche Berayakon
Gewoon
Ugoyakon
Chaye de Chobet Israël,
Uchaye de
Bagala
Kol
Visman
Betisel
Kari
Bagala
Imru.
Uvisman
Amen.
Kariv Dimramin
Ishme Rabba
Yeheshme Rabba Levarak
Levarak
Leolam
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 Bachish
Umaya
Tabafi
Yisbarak
Pa'ar
Yishtabach
V'Ramayim
V'Tar V'Tamam
Mitadar
V'Yitnase
V'Tadar
V'Tadar
Shme
V'Tale V'Talam
Ila
Tal
Tikur
Bachatu
V'Shirat
Lelam and Kol Bechatar
Ishbechata
Bechata
B'Nechamata
Bechata
Anbiom
Samata Demiran Doma
Tom Rabbi
Shlama
Mishlamach
Rabba
Amen.
Mishamach Ayinu El Bakol
Shalom.
Amen Ose Shalom B'Nua
Shalom.
Nase Shalom
Aleno
Alenu
V'El Kol
Bakol
Yisrael
Israel
V'El
Bakol
Yisrael.
Leshbei
Say shalom,
Amen
Yamahu
Amen.
Yahweh Shalom. Yoko Yisrael, Yoko Yoshvete.
Amen.
Amen.
Shalom, Huya, say shalom, Aleinu, El Kol Yisrael, El Kol Yoshete, Val Be'imru. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So our formal practice has ended today, a couple of minutes early, which is lovely. We invite anyone who would like to, please to stay. And it's an opportunity to ask questions of Kerith about her beautiful teaching, about paradox, about practice in general. And so if you have questions, and those who have to leave, please go in peace, and we hope we see you tomorrow. I wanted to, somebody had asked last week, so hang on, let me do this. Here is who's teaching this week. Sorry, I meant to do this earlier, and I forgot. So tomorrow we have Allison Cohen, and then Rabbi Dorothy Richmond, Rabbi Susan Leiter, and Emily Hertzlin. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. Kerith, I just wanted to say how much your teaching really resonated for me personally. I also studied Zen before I became Jewish. I belonged to a Zen center, and I just find something very powerful about the space beneath and beyond understanding. So many of which paradox for me seems to really capture. We're always trying to figure out, is it this? Is it that? Can I put it together? No, it's both of these things sort of beyond what we can comprehend is where feels to me the deepest truths are.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think also the idea that we don't have to keep naming it. Sometimes when we can just sit with like the base, and gross. I don't mean disgusting. I mean like
National at the bottom.
feeling, the feeling, the at its at its most pure form without naming it, because sometimes naming it can be like picking that wound, right? And so I also think like it's important to note that it's okay to be okay right now, that we really need people who are okay, to hold those who aren't. And so all of these things, and I loved seeing how people were naming their contradictions that they were holding as they were sitting, and also at the same time like an invitation to see what happens if you let go of the name of it and just tap into the emotive space. Is there a difference in that kind of sitting?
What a wonderful invitation. Okay, we have a couple of questions.
Great.
Most of the time, I find that seeking a single answer for something that might not have an answer creates an illusion. I am learning to sit comfortably with the discomfort. Yeah. I used to be a high school teacher and English teacher, from where I learned anything of value in my life, teaching ninth graders. And I used to think, okay, my most important task here is to help them hold the ambiguity and deal with the ambiguity, which I think is sort of Harris and I are saying the same thing. Esther asks, from our yoga practice, constriction and contraction strengthen and liven our muscles, our system. Can paradox be related in our thoughts? Be of an expending, sorry, I'm not reading this correctly. Can paradox be related in our thoughts of expanding inner spaciousness?
Yeah.
I think is what she's asking.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think that this idea of paradox is we often will use words, right, that seem to be at odds with one another to describe what a paradox, what paradox is that we're experiencing in the moment. But it's almost that experience is beyond naming, is beyond words. And so absolutely it is about expanding our consciousness and therefore our inner spaciousness. And therefore, when we can hold those two things without grasping, right? And deciding, oh, this is the better one, so I want to hold on more to this one. But really be with what's there in our practice. It allows us, as we walk through the world, to call upon that practice when we're faced with discomfort and hopefully enter whatever it is that we need to enter in the world with more spaciousness, with more equanimity.
That's very hard for people who love words and so many of us who live in our heads.
Yeah, yeah.
Question. I was fascinated by your observation about the Tisha B'Av cantillation using the same melody as those for Esther. Are the words the only difference, or is there any alteration in the melodies?
There is alteration in the melodies, but the Tisha B'Av tropes contain part of the Esther tropes, or you could say it the other way around. The Esther tropes contain part of the Tisha B'Av tropes. They inter-are, to steal a phrase from Thich Nhat Hanh, but they are deeply, deeply connected.
That's so beautiful. I just love that. I would never be able to hear that. So thank you. I did a teaching on, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get this correct. Ikev this morning. I see contradictions in the text. God is a God of chesed, and yet that God told Moses to destroy an entire people and take the land. How can we continue to teach thus? I discovered that I must teach in polarity, if not opposition to this Torah. Yes?
So, I had a discussion with somebody recently who was very, very angry at the Torah. And the way that it works for me, and this does not have to be the way that it works for you, but I'll just share from my perspective because that's what I got. Is that the Torah is a description of the world as it is, with all of our pain, with all of the paradox, with the anguish, with beauty, with terrible, terrible ugliness. That's what we live in. It's not olam haba. It's not what we work toward. But it's a reflection of the broken world. And that's how it works for me. Not that the Torah is some, amazing, wonderful, like world where everything is perfect. It's certainly it's really not so. I remember I used to come up as a congregational cantor. We spend a lot of time with 12 and 13-year-olds, and some of the Torah portions that B'nai Mitzvah kids were assigned. Sometimes we're dealing with stuff that the parents were not ready to talk to their kids about, and they expected the Torah to be all flowers, mint and roses, and just everything beautiful and nothing difficult. That is not the world we live in, and it's not the world that's reflected in our Torah. And so that's how I approach it. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Super helpful. There are lots of great comments going on in the chat, everybody. So, question from Glenn. Thank you for making this space available for us this morning. There is the famous part of the Mahahanya or Amita chant, sorry. Form is emptiness. Oh, yeah. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. A real holding of paradox. That is a famous Buddhist chant. When we rise from our mindfulness, what is the key feeling to retain in our meeting of the actionable paradoxes in our life? Wow. When we rise from our mindfulness, what is the key feeling to retain in our meeting of the actionable paradoxes in our life?
It's such a great question, and I'm not sure what the key feeling is. Right now, for me, one of the key feelings maybe is I don't know. And if I greet others with I don't know who they are, even if I really feel like I do. I don't know what they're going through, even if I'm sure I do. That it allows me to be more present. And that's also part of the holding two things at once, is to really let go of that surety of mind that can often lead to discompassionate receiving of others. And the more we tap into the humility of paradox, holding two things at once, the more we can really be present for others and for ourselves with compassion.
Mm. That don't know. I when I used to belong to a Buddhist center, a Zen center, they taught don't know mind, which is really very similar, I think, in many ways to beginner's mind, which many of us are more familiar with. Like that stance of Hitlam Dut, like open-minded curiosity and not knowing. In our tradition, Hitlam Dut. I am looking at more, just so much gratitude. Let's see, did I miss any questions here? Oh, I went back up. Yes, I like what you say. I don't know. It makes me, Judith and I are on the same page. It makes me think of the importance of curiosity. Yes. Yes, and that's what Hitlam Dut is, which Mark, for those of you who've studied Tikkun Midot with Mark, is a central part of his teaching about being able to access the Midot within us, is about having that open-minded, non-judgmental curiosity about what is in front of us, which is that what Hitlam Dut means? Is that how it translates? Do you know the actual translation of Hitlam Dut? I've always understood it as non-judgmental.
I think it is just I think it is just curiosity. Awareness, right? Awareness.
Yeah. Well, and it allows us to hold this paradox. And I wanted to share a story about paradox. So it ends up that Margolius, will be back in a couple of weeks, he went to a camp growing up called Camp Paradox, a Jewish camp called Camp
That's
Paradox.
so great.
Isn't that the best? And we joke that, I'm sort of in love with paradox. I see it at the heart of spiritual life as sort of my, like, I can really go down a rabbit hole about that. So we joke at work about all roads lead to Camp Paradox. And all true roads lead to Camp Paradox. And he went back one summer and it was falling down. It was like ruined buildings in the woods. And in some way that felt beautifully perfect, that we hold Camp Paradox in our hearts, even when it is falling down. So does anyone have any more questions for Kerith? Or Kerith, anything you'd like to share, maybe about your retreat or any parting thoughts?
Sure. Well, I think I saw someone say they're coming to Mexico. We can't wait to see you. So that would be wonderful. I think parting thoughts are just as we leave this sit today, if you were able to really drop into your emotive state and recognize what's there for you, whether it was beautiful or difficult or both. I hope that you're able to stay connected to that as you walk through whatever is coming to you today, just so that you can pay attention and take good care of your own heart. So that's what I wish for all of us. And thank you all so much for your presence today.
Thank you so much, Kerith. Thank you, everyone. And Harry, thank you for holding this space so beautifully. Goodbye, everyone, and have a good rest of the week.